The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
Welcome to Dinner with the King. We are back a couple of weeks since Jim Cornette was on the podcast, so we had to recover with Jim Cornette. I'm Glenn Moore, joined here
That's our excuse for being off the air for a week. We had to recover from Jim Cornette. He's not going to like that, but that's okay.
I'm Glenn Moore, joined here by WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler, and we are live from King Jerry Lawler's Memphis Barbecue Company. So you're going to hear some good places packed today. So we're going to have a lot of people in the background talking. You got clanging of the trays. You got meat. You got soda dispenser. So you're going to hear a lot of that today because this place is bouncing. And
well, one of the reasons why is because, of course, we're recording this early in the day, and you're gonna then, I guess, kind of edit it and take out any slip-ups that you make where you swear by mistake or whatever. But anyway, then it's going to be released later on this afternoon. And there's so many people in here today because this Jerry Lawler's Barbecue is sponsoring a big event that's taking place down at Tomley Park, down on the river tonight at Barbecue Fest. We're sponsoring barbecue sauce wrestling.
ooh,
Yes, that's become a mainstay every year at the Barbecue Fest. And this is the week, of course, we were in Memphis in May. We had the Music Fest the week before last. Now this week is Barbecue Fest weekend. And man, there are thousands and thousands of people in town, and a lot of the tourists have come by the restaurant today. It's going to be cool.
now is this like female versus female or male versus?
Well, you know what? I had heard about it last year. I didn't get a chance to attend, didn't get a chance to see it, but apparently it can be both.
Okay.
It's the people that are actually in the competition against each other as far as barbecue cook-offs. I mean, these are the grill masters or the cooks and the guys that own the barbecue pits and all that kind of stuff that are in town, and it's just another way of competition. These guys just apparently a lot of them don't like each other. So not only are they going to be going against each other as far as the barbecue competition goes, they're going to actually get in a ring filled with barbecue sauce and wrestle each other. But I've also heard that there are going to be some females as well.
Well, I was hoping, if I'm, staying for a couple of days, I was hoping maybe if I, find myself an attractive female that I want to get up and close and personal with, I can get her in the ring with the barbecue sauce.
Oh yeah, that would be good for you to be covered in barbecue sauce. Can you try to be any less attractive?
I mean, I would love it. Attractive girl, barbecue sauce. Oh yeah.
Oh man, that's two of your favorite things on earth.
I'll get some Jerry Lawler barbecue sauce from the restaurant all over. Oh yeah, it'd be great.
Well, anyway, that's going to be going on today. Tonight, I think it's 7:30 down on at Tomley Park in Memphis.
Well,
Barbecue Sauce Wrestling, brought to you by Jerry the King Lawler's Memphis Barbecue Company.
Well, this podcast will go up before that, so if anybody listening and being one of the first listeners of the podcast this week, if before 7:30 your time, you can jump down to downtown Memphis.
Yeah.
So, but we have a couple of housekeeping tidbits.
I was going to say at first I thought they were asking me to actually referee this thing, and where I was going to have to get in there and get all covered in barbecue sauce. But now I found out that actually I'm only going to be announcing. Just like I may grab somebody out of the audience to fill the part of good old JR as we do this announcing gig tonight for the barbecue sauce wrestling.
You think I could fill JR's role?
No, I want you in the ring wrestling. I want you covering with barbecue sauce.
Yeah. Only intergender, though. Like I said, intergender barbecue wrestling champion. I could be a champion.
You could be.
Intergender barbecue sauce wrestling champion of the world. I think I got a new gimmick. And then JR can sponsor. He can say sauce it.
Who could?
JR.
Okay.
Okay. All right, off the barbecue sauce.
Okay.
We do have some housekeeping things to get into before we get into our Ask the King Absolutely Anything episode.
Housekeeping? What do you mean by that?
Well, we gotta
I
let.
wish, you know what? I'm looking for a good housekeeper.
Oh,
Yeah, I need somebody to help me clean this big old house here.
yeah, your place is pretty messy.
What do you mean? Listen to you now.
It's pretty
It
messy.
is not pretty messy.
I remember I was there end of January and up at your house.
After you left, it was pretty messy.
You know, it was terrible. It was Christmas stuff still hanging around, and boxes everywhere.
I think there might still be some Christmas presents unopened in the living room right now.
Jeez.
That's sad, isn't it? But at least the Christmas tree's not up anymore.
Well, that's good. I'm glad about that. But when I say housekeeping, I mean we have several announcements for the podcast. First, next week is going to be part 1 of our Memphis wrestling, discussion with Jeff Jarrett. We had him on the podcast before, King, and we talked about him being inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame. But these 2 episodes is going to be a part 1 and a part 2. It's going to be about Memphis wrestling and just letting you guys talk about, obviously Memphis wrestling, WWE, anything you guys want to talk about. It's going to be a 2-parter episode. So that's going to be great. And then we're going to have your dentist, the Christmas creature.
You're really going back in the past now, right?
We're going to have Glenn Jacobs, a.k.a. Kane, on the podcast, the first episode in June. He's going to come on and you guys
he's probably going to be the future county mayor in Knox County, up near Knoxville, Tennessee.
So he
won the primary, right? He won the primary.
Yeah, he won the Republican primary, and
he's in, man.
Yeah, he's in because there's like 40,000 votes for the Republican primary, and there's only 7,000 for the Democratic. So I safe to say that he's going to be county mayor.
I would think so.
So we're going to have him on the podcast. So we have the next few episodes. They'll be jam-packed, but I'm looking forward. Jeff is extremely excited to he booked an hour and a half for us, King. So
good grief.
Yeah. So you guys can fill an hour and a half.
Serious talking in an hour and a half.
So 2-part
episode.
I saw
where Jeff's dad, Jerry Jarrett, has got himself a new podcast, right?
I don't think he's released an episode yet as of today, but he has announced that he will be doing a podcast. And I'm sure you'll be highlighted as a topic of discussion throughout many of those episodes.
I would think so. Thank goodness Jeff Jarrett, Jeff's dad. Thank goodness Jerry Jarrett thought that I was a good wrestler, because he's the guy that gave me the big huge push for years and years and years here in Memphis.
Yeah. Well, so I'm sure a lot of Memphis wrestling fans will be tuning into his podcast, and we should get Jerry on sometime.
Oh yeah,
that'd be great.
I'm sure he'll do it. I talked with somebody the other night. Did I get his? Yeah, I got his number, and he wants to be on the podcast. And I think he's got his own podcast. That's what he said. He said we need to trade podcast appearances.
Oh,
was Joe Laurinaitis, the Road Warrior Animal?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And man, he's got. Trust me, it's just judging. He and I rode on the 2 flights to and from Dothan, Alabama, and then they picked he and I up in the car and drove us to and from the matches. We stayed at the same hotel, and it was like he's got a ton of stories. I mean, that's just it was one of those nights. I think I've said this before. If you go back and read my book, I remember when I was first getting started in the wrestling business, and I was all excited. Now everything was all new, and I always wanted to talk about what was going on now. And I was around every time I was in a dressing room with a bunch of the old veterans, and those guys would wind up talking about we called them old war stories, where they'd just talk about matches that had happened in the past and that sort of stuff. And I remember looking at one of the other young guys and said, "Man, if I ever get like that, please shoot me." And so anyway, and in my book. At the end of my book, I wrote somewhere somebody's loading the gun, because that's what my book wound up being, just a bunch of old war stories. But that's what this, we went down and did it was called a Continental Wrestling like a reunion, a festival, and they had brought back a bunch of the guys that had wrestled down in the what it was called Continental Wrestling, but it was like the Dothan, Alabama, and oh gosh, Pensacola, Florida, and that that area down there, Southern Alabama and Eastern Florida. So anyway, I mean, guys, Robert and Ron Fuller and Chick Donovan and Tommy Rich and Johnny Rich and just a ton of those guys from that day. Mr. Wrestling 2 was there, but as you can imagine, it was just everybody was reminiscing. Everybody was telling the old war stories again, about matches from the past and everything. And now that you're one of those seasoned veterans, it's kind of cool, and I can understand why they were talking about those stuff, because I mean, that was your life, and that's what these guys were talking about, the memorable things. But man, Road Warrior Animal, he's got some classic tales of when he and Hawk, were in the WWE before they were in the WWE, and just he'll be a great guest to have on the podcast.
Yeah, he's great. Legion of Doom is one of my favorite tag teams of all time. Even pre-WWF, in WCW and making the rounds in the territories.
I could never get into calling them the Legion of Doom.
Legion of Doom.
No,
LOD.
Road Warriors, man. They were the Road Warriors.
Yeah. I was never a fan of, LOD 2000 when, they had, when Heidenreich was a member of Legion of Doom, and they had draws. They had that whole angle.
I couldn't get into that either.
Yeah, I couldn't get him, but yeah, that'd be great to have him on. Well, speaking of him, he's going to be at an event in Labor Day weekend in Chicago, Starrcast, which we're going to be a part of, doing a live show.
That thing is just growing by leaps and bounds. It's going to be amazing, isn't it?
Well, it revolves around an all-in wrestling show. It's an independent wrestling show put on by Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, independent wrestlers. Obviously, everybody knows who Cody Rhodes is, but that thing is sold out in half an hour. 10,000 tickets in half an hour sold out.
10,000 tickets. Where are they having this? Where are they having the show?
I think the Sears Center, and they hold 10,000 people in Chicago, and they sold out in a half an hour. Which is,
am I wrestling on that, or
you are not
doing the podcast?
You are not.
I'm just doing the podcast. Okay.
So we're a part of Starrcast, which is like the access to the wrestling show, and it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's live podcasts, which we'll be doing. There's merch tables. There's different different events for people who buy a ticket to Starrcast. So our event is Friday at 2:00. It's going to be you, obviously the King, me, and Terry Funk.
Oh my goodness!
Live on stage, and it's going to be an empty arena match. Going over the whole match. We're going to be playing the match for everybody.
I got a feeling this is not going to turn out well.
I don't think so.
How did this get? Who thought this up? How did this get booked?
Well, I think I pitched the idea to to Conrad Thompson. I'm like, I would love to do a live podcast of this thing, and I threw some names around of people that from Memphis days, and I think I'm not sure if him or if I did through Funk's name, and he's been organizing it, doing a great job, and he goes, I'm going to get Funk and book King, and they'll do a live podcast and talk about the empty arena match, and just you guys just go back and forth, which we have an hour and a half block, but I'm sure it's going to be that's going to be very easy to fill 90 minutes between you two.
Oh my goodness! Now Terry Funk is he's pretty much I don't even want to say semi-retired. I mean I think Terry now is pretty much retired. He just stays on his home down in Texas and that sort of thing. But I don't know if I should be proud of the fact or ashamed of the fact that Jerry Lawler is one of the few things that will make Terry Funk get up out of that lazy boy recliner that he spends his day in and get on a plane and come to somewhere to berate me or to throw jabs at me or to actually have physical contact with me still all these years later. I just don't know what it is. I don't know how he and I got so so at odds over the years, but somehow that has happened.
I'm not scared for what's going to happen. I mean, I know you and him are going to be, throwing verbally, punches back and forth, but I mean, I'm going to be probably sitting between you guys, and if a chair is thrown my way, I'm going to be in the crossfire.
Yeah, you're right. If you're actually going to be sitting between us, you're in the most danger of the three.
I mean, I'm going to have a fireball going past my face.
Could have a fireball right in the face.
I'm going to have a piece of wood.
So many things that could happen there. Yeah.
It's good.
Let me hear Glenn Moore say, "My eye,
my eye, doctor."
Is there a doctor in the house?
Is there a doctor? So we're going to be going over that match with Terry Funk. That's going to be terrific. So that just is. I think the tickets as of now for just the convention, the live podcast, there's only a handful available. I mean, those were on sale on a Tuesday night yesterday as I was recording, and there's 3 different tiers. There's like premium, there's middle, and there's a lower, and I think there's only middle available. So it's gonna be jam packed, and Kingo, you'll be there, and you'll be having your merch table, and we have your shirts for available for purchase, and you'll have autographs.
Hey, that's a cool thing, man. I got in my shirts from the Pro Wrestling Tees. Is that their?
Yeah, you got to post though. You got to put them on.
I need to put them on, take a picture, and send them out. Post them. Show them. They're cool.
You like them?
I like them all. Yeah, but I really like the one of me throwing the powder in Jack Briscoe's face. I like the black one that says King on it. I like them all.
Yeah, we had a couple fans tweet out photos of them wearing a shirt. I believe Josh was the first one. He's a security job wearing the King, the black and white one with the King in your face, the shadow of your face.
Yeah, I like that one. I drew that.
So that's a good one. So yeah, so all those are available at ProWrestlingTees.com/Jerry Lawler, and they'll actually be printing T-shirts at the event. So if you have a size or a shirt that you want.
They're going to be right there. There's Pro Wrestling Tees is going to be at this event too.
Yeah, so they'll be printing T-shirts. So you can buy if you're going to the event. Let us know, and King will be available for photos and autographs, and you have his own merch table. So, but this whole event, King. I mean, there's a ton. Not just our little hour and a half.
Well, who else is doing their podcast there?
We have Bruce Pritchard and Eric Bischoff doing a Monday Night Wars debate. You have NWO show with X-Pac, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. Jeff Jarrett will be there, talking about I think TNA and his career for an hour and a half. You're going to have War Games retrospective with JJ Dillon.
Is JR going to be there with his podcast?
JR has not been announced.
Yeehaw! You sure?
He's not on the list yet.
Oh, well.
The War Games is going to be with Animal, Lex Luger, Tully Blanchard, and J.J. Dillon. That could be a time to have Animal. We could record something with Animal live in the flesh. There's going to be the roast of Bruce Pritchard, and there's going to be karaoke with Bruce Pritchard and Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, boy.
So there's a lot of stuff going on.
I would call that scarioke. I would not want to listen to those two sing.
And our event is Friday, August 31st. At 2 p.m. That's when Jerry Lawler, Terry Funk, and I will be on stage. There's DDP Yoga is going to be doing DDP Yoga in the morning. You're going to have Medusa doing a live women's wrestling.
Okay, this is only interested in people that are in Chicago. So nobody else can go to this thing.
Well,
people that are listening here in Memphis saying, I can't go to that. Why do I care?
People are traveling. I know a few of our people that follow us on Twitter are going from Memphis. People all over the country are going.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm saying, if you want to come up to this, go to Chicago from Memphis. I think some tickets are available. People can buy tickets just to get in, but they can't go to the live shows. So you're gonna have to buy a bracelet, which is what they're selling, and to get in. So there's only a few left. So make sure you get in. And I'm sure we'll be able to post the show as a podcast when we get it. When. Yeah. So we will do that. So.
Then everybody that is listening will they'll eventually get to hear what we're talking about here.
You can hear me getting punched by Terry Funk, probably.
Yeah.
Because who knows what will happen. All right, let's get into the show. Jerry Lawler Day was 1 week ago. We didn't do a show last week, but King, how did you celebrate?
But that was one of the reasons we didn't do a show, because I was so busy with all of the duties that still surround Jerry Lawler Day.
It was 30 years. 30
What?
Through 30. 30,
It was the original Jerry Lawler Day was 30 years ago?
30 years ago, King.
Isn't that crazy?
Whew.
Unbelievable.
I was
Yeah, that was the day.
4
That
years
was
old.
May the 9th, 1988. Jerry Lawler wins the first ever world championship in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah.
After I think my first title match was in 1974, and many title matches up until finally 1988. I finally win. Ooh.
And now you were given Jerry Lawler Day. The mayor, proclaimed Jerry Lawler Day.
Yeah, Mayor Dick Hackett was the mayor back then, and he was there we proclaimed Jerry Lawler Day earlier in the day. I was
Right.
down at his office and all that sort of stuff. And then he came. He actually was there, sitting on the front row of the matches. And the University of Memphis basketball head coach Larry Finch was there. Oh God, there were there were tons of different local Memphis celebrities. Lance and Dave Brown showed. Lance Russell and Dave Brown showed up to do the commentating, and of course the special referee for the match was none other than the fabulous Jackie Fargo.
Yeah.
Who was my mentor, and it was kind of a cool thing back then, because this match was so big, and also this was an idea of Jerry Jarrett's. This was at a time when those 900 numbers were coming into existence, where you could have people, if you had a 900 number, then you could get people to call it for some reason. There was a charge, there was a charge on this that you could reap, X amount of money. You could charge whatever, $1, 50 cents, whatever you want to charge for the calls, and they call this 900 number, and the person's telephone bill would be charged, right? So Jerry Jarrett comes up with this idea. He said, we got to make some money off these 900 number deals. And he said, we got to come up with an idea of where we can get people to call in this number that we had. And so he came up with the idea of having let the fans choose the referee for this world title match. And so, to make it as outlandish as possible, to get the most calls, Kurt had a suggestion for a referee, and then I had a suggestion for the referee. And of course, I wanted Jackie Fargo, my mentor, the guy that had helped get me in the business and had been like a father figure to me all these years. And then, speaking of father figures, Kurt Hennig asked for, and he suggested, his actual father, Larry the Axe Hennig, to come down to Memphis and be the special referee for the match. So of course, all the Memphis fans are saying, "My gosh, how bad would that be to have Kurt's father refereeing this match?" So people called in like crazy, and they voted, and it was like, I don't know, I don't think it was $1. That was too much. It was maybe 50 cents or something like that every time you called and voted this 900 number. And it was one of those deals where the price of the fact that you were being charged when you called this number, that was in the very, very small print, right? So, man, we got tons and tons of votes, and later on we got tons and tons of complaints of parents where their kids had dialed this number and voted over and over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden these charges came out on their telephone bill. And I just saw a tweet the other day of somebody that said, I was in tears when Jerry Lawler won the AWA world title, and then my parents were in tears when they got the telephone bill for me voting for Jackie Fargo to be the special referee. So that was one of those deals. But it was a big night, and it's hard to believe that was 30 years ago now. Whew.
30 years ago. I was 4 years old, King.
Oh, wow.
Well, speaking of the hotline, those hotlines were great. I mean, I never called them, but
that's what they're called, hotlines.
Well, the reason why they stopped doing the hotlines, do you know the reason why?
No, I don't.
Well, with the internet,
Jerry Lawler Day.
Well, with the internet coming about, people were able to access the internet and read, what was happening and able to vote on certain things. But the reason why the hotline 900 numbers died was people would get their bills and they would see their kids, rack all these charges. They just wouldn't pay the bill.
Ooh.
And there was a whole thing. I think Gene talked about it because Gene, he made a ton of money off those hotlines with WCW and WWF, but they were losing money because they would get all these
just wouldn't pay it, right?
Yeah, they just wouldn't pay the bill. They just wouldn't pay the bill, so they actually were losing money from the hotline. But those are great. If I didn't watch Raw, back in the 90s, this is before being able to have fast internet. And if I wasn't able to go on, dial-up, I would call this free plain dealer number.
Really?
And it was the plain deal. Back of the plain dealer, it was like a 999 number, 216-999 number. And you press 4 for wrestling, and you would get all the rumors, and you would get the Raw results. So I would listen, and they would tell me what happened for Raw. And I would call Tuesday morning if I wasn't able to stay up for Monday Night Raw, and that's how I would get my results.
Jeez.
So I'm sure a lot of people listen to the podcast probably called the hotline, or they did the same thing and got the results via the phone before the internet came about. But yeah, it's a big thing. But so, how did you celebrate Jerry Lawler Day this year?
Looking back, I was actually preparing myself for May the 10th, where I had to go to Bolivar High School, a little city about maybe 55 miles east of Memphis here, and I had to speak at the graduation, like a graduation ceremony for the journalism class at Bolivar High School. And so I honestly sat there. Part of the day, I was sitting and looking for motivational quotes and that sort of thing to stick into this. It's so funny. I've never had a problem going out and speaking to 10,000 people or even more, and especially, doing broadcasts and all that stuff. But when you go out on a stage and stand at a little podium, and there might be maybe 200 people or 250 people in the audience, that to me is like that. Man, that is tough. I don't know why, but it is, and it's that's one of the things that I don't know if I'm looking forward to doing these shows with JR coming up at we got one coming up in Nashville and we got one coming up in Chicago. When you I don't know why that is. It's like they say that public speaking is one of the biggest fears in the world, and I have a fear of speaking to and I hate to say a small audience, but compared to the size of audiences that I'm used to speaking to on WWE TV and all that, it is a small audience. But anyway, that's kind of the way I spent my day. I was looking up some things and getting ready to deliver my motivational. And they said, here's what we want. Here's what we want you to talk about: the value of hard work. Yeah, why would they ask me to talk about the value of hard work? I think that's my first response of the speech was, I can't understand why you picked me to come and talk about the value of hard work. Because honestly, I've said this before. I feel like I've never, so fortunate. I feel like I've never had to work a day in my life in this profession that I've been in. I never felt like it was work. But anyway, that's what I did on I didn't. They still had garbage pickup, trash pickup, and everything. Used to. I would expect them not to have that on Jerry Lawler Day, but they did. The banks were open. Mail was delivered.
Schools were still open, right?
Schools were open, so it was almost like a regular day.
Yeah, I can't believe schools. People go to school and there's still mail on Jerry Lawler Day. Can't believe it.
Oh well.
But yeah, 30 years ago. I think we did a whole podcast on that match last year for Jerry Lawler Day.
Yeah.
But that was
I was watching some of the some of the tapes of that and the match and the kind of the famous 4 count that Jackie Fargo did on the match. He didn't stop at 3. He told me later. He said, I wanted to make sure there was no doubt about it. So he counted to 4 on the on the count out. But I don't know. It was like when I watch it back, I look and I'd see, there's Kurt Hennig in the ring with me, and he's gone, and Jackie Fargo as the referee, and he's gone, and then I'd watch it like so many of the guys that got in the ring when it was over. Billy Travis, a bunch of the different wrestlers are gone now, and it's just it's sort of a kind of mixed emotion feelings when you watch that.
Yeah, I mean it's on the Lance doing
Lance
commentary,
calling the commentary, gone. Yeah,
it's I know you and I've talked about death, and we talked about your cardiac arrest, and your stroke, and that's why I enjoyed doing this podcast, is because I consider you a friend, but also because I enjoy talking wrestling with you and having
and I'm still here.
Yeah, having these archived forever. I mean, these will go up on the internet and will always be available 30 years down the road. And I'm sure, people who are still alive 30 years from now would love to hear Jerry Lawler stories. And I know you probably can't believe that.
Oh, will I be in 30 years? Holy mackerel.
Well, you'll be, what, 90, 98?
Hey, I could make it.
I can see you making it 100. Now, here's a question for you. Will you be wrestling at 98?
You know what? That was so great that one of the things that we remember the Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young, that dynamic duo that I had so much fun with in the WWE. But Mae Young that was her goal. She said, "I want to wrestle on my 100th birthday." And she used to say that in all seriousness. And for a long time, I believed that she was going to actually try to do that. I mean, if you remember Mae Young, I mean, in her 80s, she was getting pushed off sitting in a wheelchair, getting pushed off by the Dudley Boys off the stage in WWE. She was just absolutely amazing. She, and she used to talk about, hey, if you something, she just had that some saying about your age, something, it doesn't matter, I don't know, but anyway, she just used to say, age is just a number, and if you don't think about it, you just keep going. And she did for a long time. I don't remember. She was in her 90s when she passed away, wasn't she?
I'm looking it up right now on the computer. I want to say she was in her 90s. Oh yeah, she died 90 years old.
90 years old.
She was only a couple months before 91. Yeah, so. Well,
my mom lived to be 90, so I mean, I might. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, you probably have 5 lives left because you're a cat, obviously. So.
Well, if I got 9, I've lost 2 for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got run over by a car, so that's 3.
Oh, hey, well, hang on now.
Joe LeDuc.
Oh yeah.
2 car accidents, because he had that car accident a few years ago on Halloween.
Oh yeah, that was a bad one.
Okay, so there's and then you have to run over the car in the studios, in the TV studio. So there's 1, cardiac arrest 2, stroke 3, car accident 4. Could you say Joe LeDuc throwing you out of the ring? Could that count as 1?
Nah, I wouldn't count that as 1.
So you got 4.
I got 5 lives left.
5 left. Yeah. Yeah, 5 every.
So come at me, bro. I'm all right.
32 years till you're 100, so you can spread those out.
Yeah.
So you'll be all right. No, I can seriously see you wrestling at 100 years old.
I saw. Really? I saw. I saw a picture in the paper or somewhere on the internet. It's funny. I don't see pictures in the paper anymore, but you say that. But I saw a picture on the internet. They were talking, and this guy looked in good shape. He was like maybe one of the oldest living World War II veterans. This man was 112 years old, celebrating his 112th birthday. And he looked pretty good.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you don't drink, you don't do any drugs, you don't smoke. So, I mean, all that adds years of your life.
I hope.
Like I said, I can see you wrestling when you're 100. Would you? I mean, you don't plan on stopping wrestling.
I would not wrestle when I was 100, no.
You're not going to wrestle when you're 100?
might go to a wrestling show when I'm 100. But
No, you're gonna wrestle until what? Until you don't get booked anymore. Basically, right?
I'm wrestling Matt Riviera. Let's see. Okay, this month, May so far, I wrestled on Friday, May the 4th. Wrestled against Doug Gilbert in Ripley, Mississippi. No, that was me and my son Brian wrestled against Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich. Then on May 5th, Saturday, I went over to Luxor, Arkansas, and wrestled in a tag team match with Derek King up there. And then I wrestled in a little bitty show here in Memphis. Me and Brian wrestled here on Sunday, May 6th. So that was 3 matches that weekend. Then Portland, I wrestled in Portland, Tennessee on Friday, May the 11th, this past Friday. And then I wrestled in Dothan, Alabama on the 12th, which was Saturday. And then I'm going to be wrestling in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Hey, and that's going to be this coming Friday, wrestling Matt Riviera in Hot Springs. And Ric Flair's on that show as well in Hot Springs. That's going to be big, yeah. And then I'm supposed to go. I'm going to go to Florida for a week. But then the next week, that's June. I'm wrestling in the first week in June, the second week in June, two times the third week in June, wrestling the fourth week in June, fifth week in June, wrestling every single weekend in June. Every single weekend those are a couple Comic Cons that I'm doing in July. Fort Lauderdale and San Diego, Raleigh.
Well, you didn't answer my question, King.
Oh, what? Am I going to wrestle on his 100th birthday? No, I'm not.
Well, I mean, that's what. Well, you always said, "Hey, I'll stop wrestling when they stop booking me." So, I mean, what if you're still
right.
getting booked?
If I'm still alive at 100, somebody would probably try to book me.
Oh, definitely. I mean, come on. You gotta be. What other wrestler can say, "Hey, I wrestled on my 100th birthday"? Not many.
Nobody has ever been able to say that yet.
Well, if you make it to 100, you're wrestling.
I don't even know if any wrestlers have made it to 100.
You can. I'm sure Terry Funk will still be alive, so you can pile drive Terry Funk, cover 1, 2, 3, boom. You wrestled on your 100th birthday.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people will pay to see that.
Oh, I'm sure.
I would.
Before he'll have hit me with his walker and all of that sort of stuff.
My hip.
Yep, you broke my hip.
That'd be great. No, okay. Well, I mean, 30 years from now, 32 years from now, I'll be 68 myself.
That's all you'll be in 30 years?
Yeah, 66.
Oh, wait a minute. How old are you now?
I'm 34, so 32, so 66 years. I'll be 66 years old.
Holy mackerel.
If I make
30 years, you won't even be as old as I am now.
I'm just a young. I mean, that makes me feel good. That makes me feel better about my age. But no, we'll be. We'll see how long. If somebody books you when you're 100, so hopefully that happens. That's way down the line. Though. We'll be driving in flying cars and doing all that stuff by then. All right, let's get into the meat of the podcast. A few questions.
What has this been? House cleaning again?
Well, huh? Say what?
What was this? This still was house cleaning?
No. Well, I mean, you're going out. I mean, this is a good portion of the podcast. Some good stories.
I would hope so.
Definitely. All right, so let's get into that. We have a few questions.
My buddy Andy Fletcher was, I told you the Major League Baseball umpire. He got a day off and he came to Memphis. We went out to eat, and as a matter of fact, we went out to eat the day after he called the game, the Cleveland Indians game, where he was behind the plate. That was just last week, wasn't it?
Last week, yeah.
Well, anyway, yeah, that very next day he got a day off and he flew to Memphis and we went out to eat, and he was telling me how much he enjoyed the Jim Cornette episode.
Oh yeah.
So we got to have Cornette on more often.
Yeah, he's great. Well, this is why the podcast gets longer than what you expect, because you go off on these little tangents, which I love, but I know you start talking, you start getting excited, and before you know it, a half an hour goes by. So that's the reason why the podcast gets a half an hour before we get into the show, King.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not a
And
bad
I
thing.
didn't even talk about my softball game we had Monday night.
Well, do you think people want to hear about your softball game?
Well, I mean, here 68 years old. I'm out there playing with a bunch of guys that are in their 20s and you know, just trying to hang with those guys. And we had a great game. We beat this team that had not been beaten before last Monday night, and it was a good game. Guy hit a scorching ground ball to me down the first base line, and shoom, I just snatched it right up. Went over. He was out at first, and it was a really good game.
How come you're not playing in the?
Three for four batting.
How come you're not playing in the? The senior league.
Ugh. Yuck.
No, never going to play in the senior league.
No, I'm not. I am not.
Well, that's good. Well, as long as you sponsor your own team, right? I mean, you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So as long as you sponsor your own team, you're able to be at any team you want.
Exactly. And you know what? Last year we won the city championship against all those young guys.
All right. Enough about softball. Come on.
I got to admit, I got a bunch of young guys on my team too.
Yeah. See.
Few veterans, some guys that have played with me for over 20 years, still on the team, and then I rounded out with some young guys that play really well, and we got a good team.
It'd be great if you got like a classic Memphis wrestling softball team. You have Dirty Dutch.
Oh my goodness!
Just a bunch of guys.
That's some of the things that we did in the past. We used to have wrestler softball games. We had wrestlers against the Memphis Southmen, which was a football team here, a professional football team here in Memphis one year. We've done that in the past. We've had wrestler, good guy versus bad guy wrestler ball games. And something we've always done here.
All right, King. Enough about softball.
Yeah, enough about that.
Let's get into the wrestling portion of the show. Like I said, this is the Ask the King Anything episode, and we have some questions from Twitter from the podcast fans, but also some questions from myself. Now, we all know we don't like Dave Meltzer, all right? And I was combing some of the, early 90s, mid-90s Wrestling Observer to where he, reveals some stuff. So I want to ask you some things that probably didn't happen because I know he likes to spit his BS a lot. So I want to know, King, there is in 94.
Well, let's go back and say that when you say we don't like Dave Meltzer, I don't know why you don't like Dave Meltzer, but I do know that back in the day, Dave Meltzer was one of the originators of what we called dirt sheets.
Right.
And that was something that, I mean, this was kind of even before internet. I remember when he used to put them together like like mimeograph, it was called mimeograph before it was copy machine or whatever. He would have these little sheets that he would put out on the copy machine and staple them together, stick them in the mail and mail them out to, hard copy mail would go out, and you'd get your little Wrestling Observer newsletter in the mail every week. And it was just inside information that the people in the wrestling business would try to protect from the fans and the reason we would do that is look, I'm looking up on the TV, the Bella Twins are everywhere today. They're on every talk show today. But anyway, maybe we'll talk about the Bella Twins here in a little bit. But these were things that the people in the wrestling business felt were, it was stuff about their personal lives that they felt shouldn't have been out there, and it was stuff about the behind the scenes a bit about the business that shouldn't have been out to the fans. And that's how Dave Meltzer became somebody that the people knew about, through these original dirt sheets. And most of the wrestlers couldn't stand the guy, and the promoters hated him because they felt like he was bad. It was bad for the business. And I felt the same way. And I don't really know Dave Meltzer. I've met him a couple of times over the years, but I don't know him enough to say whether I'm friends with him or dislike him or anything.
Well, you called him a dweeb on the podcast last year.
I did?
Yeah, you called him a dweeb. You thought he was a dweeb.
Well, he used to be a dweeb. I don't know. I haven't seen him in years.
I mean, so he's not a dweeb then.
Well, no, I don't know. He may be a dweeb. I mean,
Well, I mean, as a booker yourself, especially during your career, I mean, I'm sure it probably didn't sit well seeing, certain stuff being leaked to fans and whatnot from,
Oh
right?
no, you hated that because I mean, that's part of that's part of the mystique or the fun of the wrestling business is not the fans not knowing what's going to happen next. I mean,
Right.
what he was like was he would be like a movie critic that would go and watch the movie before it came out and then go and tell a story to everybody. Hey, here's what happens in the movie. This guy gets killed at the end, and this guy, and he would spoil the fun, and that's why they call him spoilers. He was one of the guys that originated spoilers. He would spoil the fun of what was going to happen in the wrestling business. I mean, just like you see a lot of people that will tape a you spend your time, you got to be somewhere else, and you'll tape a ball game, and you'll try not to you don't want to know what happened at the end because you want to sit and watch it and enjoy it, and then you hate it when somebody comes up and says, oh, before you watch that, Cleveland loses 9-8 at the last inning to Detroit. And so that's what these guys did with these dirt sheets. They were spoilers.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I enjoyed reading some of the spoilers, not everything, but more about like, oh, who's jumping ship to, from WWF, WCW, and so on. Sometimes SmackDown spoilers. That's so if I didn't want to tune in, or if I did want to tune in, but yeah, people eat that up, man. They want to know all the inside stuff. They want to feel like they're in the
Well, you know what?
circle.
You know what? You think they do, and they think they do, but in reality, if you're, excuse me, if you're like a true wrestling fan, you still may think you do, but you really it diminishes the enjoyment of the product if you do hear that stuff.
No, I agree. So he's not a dweeb then.
Yeah, I'd say he's still dweeb.
Well, you're being kind.
Because doesn't he still do? I mean, isn't he still that?
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
he still do that kind of
he
stuff?
has his own wrestling show. He still writes, puts out tidbits left and right. When you briefly mention about Saudi Arabia and the women possibly getting paid even though they're not wrestling, he said that wasn't true, but then it turned out to be true. I mean, some of the stuff I don't agree with. Some
Well,
stuff doesn't happen.
I mean, see, he's the kind of guy that is so out there fishing for any behind the scenes thing that he makes something out of nothing. I mean, that was just a comment that I made to you when we were talking about. I had no inside information to base that statement on, and I just said I just based that statement. That was just my own personal opinion of the fact that I would think that Vince McMahon would, I said something about I would bet that Vince McMahon gave, the females a payday from the Saudi Arabia show that they didn't get to attend because of political reasons or
Right.
whatever, that kind of thing. And that was just like my own personal opinion because that's just what I think that Vince McMahon would do. But then, like you said, Dave Meltzer made it like that was an official statement that all of a sudden coming from the WWE that the women were going to get a payday, and that's just the kind of stuff that he's always done. He's a sensationalizer, and he's always looked for inside and dirt. That's why we called him the dirt sheet. He'd always, because people always wanted to read. Bad news sells better than good news, so people always wanted to know the bad stuff that was going on in wrestlers' lives. And that's, everybody felt like that was an invasion of privacy on his part to delve into their personal lives and then throw it all out there in front of the public.
Well, I mean, someone's talking to him in WWE because he does get some stuff right. Most of the stuff.
Oh, without a doubt. You're right. There's always these idiots, I say, that are backstabbers that are that actually are working for the WWE and and I'm sure there are now and have always been back when he got started, that were working and getting paid money by the WWE and then would turn around and give him information. It was almost like a spy or something like that, or a mole or something in the company that has always worked with him and given him the information that he gets.
Yeah, I'm sure if Vince would find out who it was, I'm sure that person would not be employed anymore.
Absolutely, and there's been more than one person, and I'm sure there have been people that have been fired over the years for doing just that.
Yeah. Because like I said, someone, either wrestlers are talking to him, but here's the thing I don't get about him. People care so much about his 5-star matches and rating matches. I never get into that. I don't really care about rating matches if it's a 5-star, but fans today care so much about his rating system. I'm sure wrestlers don't care.
No, not at all.
I don't care. Well, I know you have a couple of 5-star. I think you had the first 5-star match ever for Meltzer's rating way back in the day. I think it was you and Terry Funk match, I believe. But I know you don't care. It didn't make you more money.
No. But it's funny that you mentioned that, because that just jogged my memory. Just like day before yesterday, I was talking to my son Kevin, and he sent me a link of a thing on YouTube, and he said this is a bump that I took, or a bump of mine, that Dave Meltzer said was the first 5-star referee bump he had ever seen.
Oh, God.
And then this was a match where Kevin was a referee, and the Moondogs gave him one of the Moondogs gave him a clothesline over the top rope and out onto the concrete floor at our Memphis TV show. And it was, but that just jogged my memory of things that, like my son said, Dave Meltzer was judging Moondog bumps or judging referee bumps by 5 stars. This was back in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, I respect the hustle. I respect being able to make a living off, being a journalist for wrestling and being able to make a living, make a lot of money. I respect the hustle, but, as a maybe wrestling purist, I don't really care for match ratings or, behind the scenes stuff as much as probably the regular fan they do today, because they always want to know.
Well, yeah, and because of social media and because of cable TV, because everybody's looking for more and more programming. Now people like Dave Meltzer have TV shows like TMZ. That's what TMZ is.
Yeah.
TMZ back in the day would be considered a dirt sheet amongst celebrities and entertainers and stuff like that. But now it's a big, highly rated TV show. And that's all they do is go and try to find dirt and stuff on celebrities.
Yeah. All right. Well, before I even get to my question, we went on a Dave Meltzer rant. But back in '94, he wrote that there was
Wait
talk.
a minute, did he write this in '94? I mean, this is a question from '94, or is this?
Well, I want to know
from now.
I want to know, because as a fan of Jerry Lawler, this is a big deal, and I'm sure with a lot of fans of Jerry Lawler, they want to know if this is probably true. But he wrote '94. There's a lot of talk of Jerry Lawler winning the WWF Championship from Bret Hart, and then being in a program with Bret. Ultimately, Lawler would lose the title due to interference from Vince McMahon, and it never happened. But people want to know. I mean, obviously, you would know if they considered making you WWF champion back in '94.
I would say absolutely not. Never. And especially anything that was never even mentioned to me, or I don't think anybody. To be honest with you, I think that back in that day, when I came up and first started in WWE, I really don't think Bret liked working with me. I think Bret thought it was beneath him to work with me. He looked at the guys from Memphis as being a bunch of just inferior type, hillbilly type wrestlers, and I know that we turned out, I thought, had some classic matches and things like that. But at the time, I think Bret thought it was he was the champion, and I don't think he thought it was a a program or an opponent that he was worthy of, and or that was worthy of him. And so no, that was never mentioned to me. And I know of anything with Vince being involved back in that time. Uh, I don't think that was true at all. I think that's just something that Dave Meltzer made up back in the day or whatever. But it was because it was never mentioned to me at all.
So you would say that was fake news.
Fake news. Fake news. Yes.
Well, like, unfortunately, I mean, that would be great. Jerry Lawler, WWF champion. I mean, for yourself, but also for fans. I was, when I read that, I was like, well, really? But no, fake news. Fake news.
Fake news.
Here's a question from Josh. Here's a question that comes up a lot. He wants to know, when can we see, classic Memphis wrestling on the WWE Network? And I know we talked about it before, last year, and there's always discussions between you and WWE. But will we ever see classic Memphis wrestling on WWE Network?
Well, I would certainly like that. I would certainly hope so. I'll tell you what. I just had a meeting with our people here at Channel 30 in Memphis, where I'm taping 3 shows this coming Sunday, and that will be. Then we will have, at that point, we will have 12. I think, yeah, we will have 12 shows in the can, completely done. And I think that is enough right there to be able to go to the WWE Network. That's like a season of shows, 13 weeks or whatever, is what usually is how many shows is done, in network TV for a season worth of shows. So I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go to the WWE people and ask them if there's any interest at all in them taking these shows. They're already done. That would be a no-brainer. And it would be no work at all for them to have to put these shows together or anything. All they have to do is start airing them. So I'm going to reach out to the WWE people possibly one day next week and see if there's any interest there.
Well, I think he's talking about, that's great, but I think he's talking about, classic Memphis wrestling episodes, full shows on the network.
Well, that's the WWE has, they've gone out and bought up almost every catalog or whatever of different territories wrestling shows, except for the Memphis wrestling, and we've talked. They've sent people down here in the past and looked at my tapes and all of that sort of stuff. And so, I don't know, the talks just they kind of went, and then they kind of just went away, and they never came to fruition, and we never could agree on a price. But I would certainly be willing to I would love for all the Memphis stuff to be available to the WWE Network, I just for the fact to get it out there, to let everybody see it. So it's available if they want to. If they want to purchase the Memphis library, we could do that. We could make that happen.
They recently put Sunday Night Heat episodes on the network.
Mm-hmm.
They're always adding, especially WWE programming, but also there's a lot of, I think, Smoky Mountain. There's a lot of old, territories, but a lot of people want to see Memphis wrestling. All the, classic Memphis wrestling episodes. On the network, so I think the network should get on that.
Well, but I'll be honest with you. I think that the classic shows that I'm doing now would be even better because it's, it's me there hosting and kind of explaining what the people are going to see, rather than just all of a sudden just go on and just show a random episode from 1980 something on the air, which may or may not, probably wouldn't appeal to people outside of Memphis that much. But if you have the shows like I'm doing now, where I'm there as the co-host or as the host and telling people what they're about to see, and then also having as a guest some of the wrestlers that are still around, that are in these matches that they're watching, and we sit and we do new commentary on these old matches while they're playing. I think that this would be a really good way to get people's feet wet as far as Memphis wrestling goes.
Yeah, I would love to have both. I mean, I would love to be able to, before I go to bed, watch an episode from 1980, but also be able to watch, a show with you from last year, talking with a guy about a match or a series of matches.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting there. I'm sitting there with Dave Brown on some of the episodes, and we're talking about Handsome Jimmy Valiant out there with Dave Brown and Lance Russell, and Handsome doing his promos and trying to kiss Dave, and then the matches that Dave commentated on, and then one episode I got Superstar Bill Dundee, and while you're watching the Loser Leave Town match, you got Bill and I doing some inside analogy on the match itself while it's going on. So it's a pretty cool show.
Another question from a fan. He wants to know, Jerry, who is your favorite tag team of all time?
Oh man, I would have to go back to when I was a fan, because that's when I think of, I don't know, when people ask me questions like, who was your favorite opponent? Of course, then, I'm talking about guys once I was in the business. But when people ask me who was your favorite wrestler overall, a lot of times I go back to when, some of my favorites was when my dad and I were just going to the live events down here on Monday nights in Memphis. And I remember one tag team in particular that I don't know. I was one of those young guys that liked the bad guys, as a lot of young people seem to gravitate towards. But there was a team called the Blue Infernos, and maybe one of the first mass teams. The mass teams were my favorites. But the Blue Infernos was actually Gypsy Joe was one of the guys, and Frank Martinez. They were two Spanish wrestlers or Mexican wrestlers. But they wrestled not lucha libre style at all. But they were just a big. Well, one of them was big. Frank Martinez was big, and then Gypsy Joe was smaller guy. But they were just, I don't know what about them. I mean, they were just the meanest, the most underhanded tag team ever. And I really started noticing them when they were giving them a big push, and they were just getting started, and they were beating everybody when they were just coming into the territory, and I just thought these guys were awesome. I remember drawing pictures of those. Those were two of the guys that I drew pictures of, that I sent to the TV station to get noticed by Lance Russell back in the day. But I was always a big fan of masked wrestlers. There was another tag team here, Dr. Ken Ramey and the Interns, Jim Starr and first was, I think, Billy Garrett, and then later Tom Andrews. But those two guys were another favorite tag team of mine. Then there was of course, Jackie and Roughhouse Fargo. They were always a favorite. This was the greatest gimmick ever. Jackie Fargo was, he lived here at the time, lived in Memphis, and was a local, he was the big time local guy here, and he was the star main attraction. And his real brother, lived over in North Carolina, and he actually worked at the Cannon Towel factory there in North Carolina, and he was just a small guy, didn't look like a wrestler at all, but they I don't know who came up with this gimmick, but I think it was Jackie himself. But what they would do was every year, Roughhouse would get, we called him Roughhouse, but anyway, he would get a 2-week vacation from his job over in North Carolina at the Cannon Towel factory, and they would bring him into Memphis as Jackie's brother, which he was his real brother. But the deal was, Jackie always throughout the year would tell everybody that his brother was in a mental institution. that he was. That's why they call him Rough House or Nut House. That he was in he was in the Nut House over in somewhere. I don't even know if they actually said where it was. But anyway, supposedly his brother was in a mental institution, and if things ever got really bad for Jackie, if he ever needed this certain crazy partner, he could go to the nut house and get his brother out on like a day pass, right, or weekly pass or something. And all of a sudden, Jackie would bring in Rough House Fargo, and Rough House would just, when the match started, he would go after everybody, his opponents, the referee, Jackie, everybody. He was just supposedly just this little crazy guy that was insane in the ring, and because the people only saw him on very special occasions and only saw him once a year, he would sell out, and he was a big card in Memphis and in our Tennessee territory, because he was Jackie's crazy brother that Jackie could go and get out of the mental institution to come in and help him get rid of two really bad guys at the time. So that was another of my favorite tag teams. There was another team called Don Carson and the Red Shadow. They were good because Don Carson was such a good talker. Remember them? The very first tag team that I ever saw, that I remember seeing when I was this was probably in the 60s when I lived in Ohio, and the first time I saw any wrestling at all on television was I think John and Chris Tolos, Tolos. They were these Greek supposedly brother tag team, the Tolos brothers. And a crazy thing, I've wound up, I remember seeing those guys when I was just a teenager, maybe 13 or 14 years old. And later on, somehow, John Tolos was still wrestling once I got in the business, and I got to actually wrestle against him. That's awesome. Somewhere. And that was just like a crazy thing. But then also, they were wrestling on the same show at the time with, they were in the same territory, which was the Detroit territory, owned by the original Sheik, Eddie Farhat. And so the Sheik, the Tolos brothers, Dick the Bruiser, and Bobo Brazil were all the big stars at that time when I was just like maybe 13 or 14 years old up in Cleveland. And later on down in Memphis in the 70s, I got to wrestle against all those guys, the Tolos brothers, against John Tolos. I got to wrestle against the original Sheik. I got to wrestle against Bobo Brazil and Dick the Bruiser. All of those guys I actually got to have matches with.
A two-part question. They want to know, well, second part, the person wants to know, David wants to know, who was your favorite tag team partner?
Oh, that's a good question.
You tagged with so many greats over the years, especially in Memphis. But who was your favorite?
Man, I would have to say, I probably tagged with Bill Dundee the most. Bill and I won the AWA World Tag Team Championships. I tagged with Jeff Jarrett a lot. But probably my all-time favorite was when I got to tag with Jackie Fargo. And I got to tag with him, quite a few times. And he was just, everything about it. Just being around Jackie Fargo to me, whether it was in the ring or not in the ring, was just very, very special to me. He was just such a charismatic guy, and just I love the guy. He was something, and being his partner was more than just being a good match. It was actually just so much fun. It really was.
Not you didn't like tagging with your son, Brian Christopher?
No.
Come on, that's a father-son thing. That has to be pretty cool to be able to tag with your son.
It's okay. We just did. We were tagged up last week. Again. And did we do tag team matches in the WWE? I know I was a special referee.
I don't think you ever tagged the other in WWE.
I can't remember.
I'm not sure. I'll have to do some looking. I'm sure someone will be out there.
Yeah, no, Brian. No, Brian's fine. He's fun to tag with.
Yeah. Okay. I figure it's like being able to.
I've tagged with so many guys over the years. It was crazy. I mean, I've had tag matches with Andre the Giant as my partner. Man, tons. David Von Erich. A bunch of different guys that I got to be in the ring with as partners. Well, I mean, golly, look at. I remember. What about the match that we had on the Raw one night when my partners were? Remember, it was out in L.A. and we were dressed up like the L.A. Clippers or something like that.
I think Lakers and Nuggets.
Lakers. Was it Lakers and Nuggets? Yeah, Lakers. And it was me, John Cena, Batista. Oh, who all was Randy Orton? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. I think a wrestling show, a Raw got moved because the Nuggets were in the playoffs and they scheduled a game on Raw, but that happened and you guys did look at an old parody. And you guys had a match, and I'm trying to look it up to see exactly. But
I see it right here. It was John Cena, me, Batista, looks like Mr. Kennedy, and what was his name? I can't remember. But anyway, we went against Randy Orton, The Big Show, Cody Rhodes. Who is that?
Was The Miz in that?
Is that Dolph Ziggler?
Was The Miz?
Maybe it is The Miz. I don't know. I think that, it is The Miz, I believe.
Yeah, I can't find the teams. Oh, here we go. The Miz was involved. You had Team Lakers, John Cena, Mr. Kennedy, MVP, Batista, and Jerry Lawler. Yeah. Defeat Team Nuggets, The Legacy, Randy Orton, The Miz, and The Big Show. And Legacy is Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of us right now.
Yeah, 2009, May 25th. So that would be 9 years ago next week.
Coming up next week, right?
Yeah, 9 years ago.
It's so crazy, when you've been around as long as I have, every single day is the anniversary of some special match.
Every day. I'm sure you've wrestled every single calendar day out there.
Exactly. Every single day.
So, all right, final question.
Yeah, but anyway, I've had so many memorable tag team partners, but that Jackie Fargo is just sentimental favorite.
Final question for our Ask the King Anything episode.
Already?
Well, we had a few, and we're pushing over an hour and 15, so I know you got to go. Wow. Final question from Robert. He wants to know, well, if you can have a conversation here on Dinner with the King with a wrestler who has passed away, who would it be?
Man, I got to go back with the same answer. It would be Jackie Fargo.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to sit down with Jackie Fargo and have him be able to just let the people hear what he was like. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I was going to answer that question for you before we asked it, but I figured Jackie Fargo would be that answer. That would be a 4-part episode of Dinner with the King.
Oh, are you kidding? Yeah, you know what, Glenn? Jackie Fargo would be. As a matter of fact, let me look on my phone right here. I have the last time I was with Jackie, and this was not long before he passed away. I just got my phone out and I asked Jackie if he would just cut a couple little promos for me. And here, let me see if this comes across. They sound rough.
And I'll come up with a lot of tough men in my life. I mean, a lot of tough men, but the toughest one I ever come up against was the King, Jerry the King Lawler. If you don't think he's tough, ask me. He's the meanest, toughest, rockinest, low-down 14 son of a sapsucker I've ever come up against, and he always will be, and he'll be, as long as I'm living, I'll be the toughest. If anything happens to me, then he'll be the toughest. So don't forget that, Patty.
There you go. The fabulous Jackie Fargo. I don't know. I hope that came across okay, but that's getting to hear the voice of Jackie Fargo not long before he passed away. But he was just such a character. I mean, if there was anybody that I could come back and have on my show, he would be the guy.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that we'd love to have come on?
Oh, well, yeah. When you talk about wrestlers that have passed away, of course, almost any of them.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great to sit down with Andre the Giant and talk to him? We've talked so many times about the matches and the getting run over by the car by Eddie Gilbert. I'd love to be able to have Eddie Gilbert on and talk with Eddie. Gosh, heck, anybody that is not with us anymore, you would love to be able to bring back and just sit down and talk with them about old times.
When we talked about doing this podcast before we did our first episode, I ran a bunch of topics past you. You also wrote down a lot of topics, but when it came to guests, and I know you don't, want everybody underneath the moon to come on the show. Has to be relevant to the topic we're talking to that week. But, when it comes to guests, I envisioned, doing a live podcast, you, me, and then having, Dave Brown and Lance Russell, all of us together talking.
Yeah.
And that would have been terrific.
Yep, absolutely. And Lance passing was unexpected, and I talked to Lance about doing the podcast, and Lance was so cool. I mean, he loved he stayed up with everything that was going on in wrestling, and his son Shane would keep Lance. I mean, he was on, as he was on Twitter and all of the social media stuff. And I'd already talked to him about doing the podcast, and he was excited about it. He was up for it. But yeah, it would have been so great. So we definitely have to get Dave Brown on one day, and I know I can. Dave is great. All I got to do is call Dave, and we'll get him over here to the restaurant. He'll do anything for a free meal. So we'll be able to get Dave Brown on for sure. Definitely.
All right, King, where are you going to be this weekend?
Well, tonight I'm going to be down on the Tom Lee Park down at the Mississippi River for the barbecue fest. There's going to be some barbecue sauce wrestling. The ring is set up, and 7:30 tonight the matches will start, and I'm going to be announcing what I'm sure will be slobber knockers. These pit masters and these barbecue grillers are going to be going head to head in the wrestling ring, covered with barbecue sauce, down at the Barbecue Fest. That's tonight. And then Saturday night, I'm going to be in Hot Springs, Arkansas, along with I'm going to be over there with Ric Flair and a big super card. I'm going to be wrestling Matt Riviera. Matt Riviera is a guy that I couldn't warm up to if we were cremated together. And so he and I are going to go at it one more time over there, and that's what I got coming up this week.
There you go. And make sure to tune in for the next few episodes, because we're going to have Jeff Jarrett for a 2-part episode starting next week. And then we're going to have Glenn Jacobs, a.k.a. Kane, in the first week of June. So the next 3 episodes are going to feature some interviews, but I'm looking forward to sitting back and listening to you and Jeff Jarrett go really in depth about Memphis wrestling, because he has a ton of stories himself. So do you. And I'm sure you guys can fill 2 episodes in very, very quickly and very easily, too.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really, there's not many things I look forward to, but I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to going to Florida next week, too.
Oh, lucky. Lucky to go to Florida. Make sure
I'm going
to
to see a guy. I'm going to see a guy down there that used to be in the WWE. Used to be one of their doctors, Dr. Frank Romascavage. And every year, he and his whole family go down to Sanibel Island. They have a week's vacation. And this year, for some reason, we're going to be down there lined up at the same time. And he called me the other day, so I'm going to hook up with him. We're going to go to a Fort Myers Miracles baseball game down there this next week. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice. And I'll be back up in Cleveland enjoying the 60-degree weather because the warmer temperatures have not come yet.
Well, you had like 1 week of, you know what, we're up in like record heat down here in Memphis, as you can feel. I mean, like 93 and 94 degrees every day. And people are already complaining. And I said, come on, get over it. We just had 8 months of winter. Come on, don't complain yet. I enjoy the hot weather much more than I do the cold.
Yeah, low 50s back up in Cleveland.
That's crazy.
So far. We a couple of days, reach up into the 70s, but chilly nights, so it hasn't really officially hit springtime in Cleveland yet. So looking forward to the warmer weather, but jealous we're going to Florida.
Maybe that's what's wrong with our Indians. Oh my gosh, I watched them yesterday, and that may be the worst game that I've ever witnessed. The Cavs aren't doing that well either, but my Indians, man, you got to do something with the Indians, man.
We got the warmer weather. Got to get the warmer weather up, and they can start hitting. But you know what? The AL Central is so bad. They could finish 500 and still win the division.
Yeah, but that ain't going to do them any good once you make the playoffs. No. Hey, what about how unusual was that? And this is, folks, now we're just talking between ourselves almost because I know not many people care about the Cleveland Indians. But what about yesterday? I thought they had the game well in hand. First inning, Brandon Geyer, little bitty guy on the Indians, comes up the bat with the bases loaded, and he hits a grand slam home run. The Indians are up 4-0, and I'm thinking this is going to be a piece of cake. It's going to be a day off. Of course, in the end, they lose 9-8. But what about Brandon Geyer? Did you see what he did yesterday? I mean, what happened to him yesterday? How often would this happen? He came up to bat 3 times with the bases loaded every time.
Whew.
Did you know that?
I mean, that doesn't happen very often.
No. How many times is somebody going to come up to bat in a game 3 times and every time the bases are loaded? Of course, he did. 1 out of 3 hit a grand slam. The other 2 outs.
Well, I'm sure there's a stat about the last time that happened to somebody in the game out there for Brandon Geyer. Because it doesn't happen very often, let alone twice or even once.
Yeah, and I don't think they were talking about it. I don't think ever has a Cleveland player hit 2 grand slams in one game. So he had a big chance to make history, but unfortunately they went down to defeat.
Yeah.
And what about Andrew Miller? He walked in the winning run. Ugh.
I'm looking it up really quick to see if that has happened before, but I cannot find it. Yeah.
That is an unusual stat.
Yeah. I cannot find it. But yeah, it's a very interesting stat. The Indians need to pick it up here. The warmer weather hopefully will equal wins, but I'm sure they'll get in the playoff. They can win 81 games, like I said, 500, and still get in the playoffs. But injuries and cold weather do not mix well.
Oh, you're right.
And a bad bullpen.
All right. Well, we are done for today, right?
Yeah, I'm sure people aren't listening to our Cleveland rants, but if you are, we appreciate it. We'll talk to everybody next week. Jeff Jarrett, part 1 interview with him, and then part 2 will be a week after. We can go back, listen to all our past episodes with Bret Hart, Terry Funk. The list goes on with special guests and topics from Dinner with the King. King, final word.
Final word. Stay tuned. Next week we're going to have a very special sponsor that you're going to want to hear from.
We'll talk to everybody next week.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production.